Good evening from PLUGHITZ Studios in Largo, Florida. I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we are here with episode 579 of F5 Live, Refreshing Technology, for Sunday, November 15th, 2020. This show is a proud part of the Tech Podcast Network. If it's tech, it's here. This week, new processors are showing up everywhere, internet usage is going up, and Twitch is admitting it's screwed up. Wherever you are and however you're accessing our show, whether it be on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or Snapchat through a podcatcher like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, TuneIn, or a myriad of other options, through our live stream platforms, livestream.com, Twitch, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, or on our website, PlughItzLive.com. Thank you for making us a part of your day. There are two ways that you can do that. The first is you can join us live Sunday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern by going to f5live.tv/join us. There you can chat with us during the show and give your feedback on the topics as we talk about them. Or you can always subscribe at PlughItzLive.com/subscribe. There you'll see all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PlughItz Live, Presents, and more. And of course, you can find all the ways that you can watch, listen, and follow along. Hey, Avram, it's good to be back.
Yeah, good to be back.
I always hate when we have to take a week off, but oh my goodness, last weekend Roboticon absolutely stole me. My co-host for Sunday made a comment that her social battery was low, and what a great way of explaining how I felt about Showtime last week. So
Yeah,
it had to happen.
yeah, I can dig that.
What's been up with you?
Yeah, it's not a lot. I will say this, and I'll have I think I'll have more to say about this online or whatever. But I just spoke to today, and I'm trying to help out what I would consider to be a worthy charity effort. That I will put the word out on social. So one thing it really caught my eye, and I reached out to this local charity here in New York that is helping get computers for kids who are remote learning, and now you and don't have / can't afford to get a computer for this. Now you might ask, shouldn't the school give them a computer? Most schools do. What's happening though is that apparently, in at least in New York City, sometimes the school has a device and they give it and it's broken, and then they can't, they get on a waiting list to get another device. Meanwhile, they can't attend class.
Right.
And there was actually a case, really quite shocking, but not completely unique, where a 9-year-old girl was declared a truant, and her mother referred to social services because she couldn't get online. Right. So this charity called Including You that I'm working with, they are going out and trying to get donations of both computers and cash to buy computers so they can help out kids like that. And so far, they've placed computers with about 50 kids.
Nice.
And they have 200 open requests from kids in the New York area. Plus, they also have done some with kids who are in Mississippi, but primarily right now, then they're based in New York. So when I read about their story, like I didn't know these folks before. When I read about their story, I reached out to them, and we had a nice little chat today. And so I'm going to be using whatever small amount of influence I have to try to get people to donate systems to them. And they are looking for really anything. They're not. I don't think they're very particular, as long as it can log into Google Classroom. So it could be an old PC. It could be a Chromebook. They will take desktops, although laptops are probably better because
Probably.
you're giving them to kids, and you also have to have, if you give them a desktop, then somehow someone's got to get them a screen and a keyboard and a mouse, which is not completely untenable, but those are other things that would need to be purchased or donated. So they are also looking for how to get internet, because that's another side of the problem, is that some of the kids will have access to, will be somewhere where there's Wi-Fi, so that's good. But some of the kids don't have internet at all, home internet at all, and they've been trying to get them things like 4G hotspots or things like that so that they can get into class.
Sure.
So anyway, fresh in my mind, I thought I would mention that. I thought I would mention that if people are, I will say this: if people who are hearing or seeing this and interested, the website for the charity is includingyou.org, and they also have set up a GoFundMe for people to donate money that they can use to buy systems, but they're also just looking for people to send them computers that they can distribute. So anyway,
Very cool.
that's something that's been on my mind since I've read about what they were, and the whole charity was founded by an 11-year-old girl.
Nice.
So and they also do mentoring programs. The donating PCs part of it was actually like not the first thing that they did, but
It's like an add-on.
that really but that's obviously where they need donations, and that's where like the need is really great, because obviously a lot of people are I mean, I don't know if you've been keeping up with this side of the news, but in New York City, they may actually be closing all of the schools soon. Not tomorrow, not Monday, but they may be. And of course, there are people who are part-time going in person,
Right.
and then there are some who are on remote all the time. My family were not in the New York City school district, but my son is going remote all the time. But we're fortunate; he has a computer.
Right.
Although what we've heard is some of the computers that his school district is giving people are rebooting themselves in the middle of class.
Of course they are.
So are running Windows updates at like noon in the afternoon or whatever, rebooting for 20 minutes or something like that. So is it any surprise that some of the school districts would not be able to give kids good quality devices and manage them? Anyway,
doing a lot of work with local school districts here? No, not a surprise at all.
Yes.
Some of them I'm surprised
anyway,
that they can find the class in the morning.
Yeah, exactly. So, to be fair, they're teachers. They're not, I mean, well, they do have IT people, but
yeah,
whatever. So anyway, I just thought I'd bring that up. It is, I think it's a concern, not just here in New York, but nationwide, is kids being, digital divide has always been a concern, but never more so than now, with kids actually being required to be online to do their schoolwork.
For sure. And here we've worked a lot with an organization called eSmart Recycling that takes in computers, does low level formats on the hard drives or replaces the hard drives and then gets them out to school students and sometimes other countries where educational computing is not an option at all. So yeah, it's definitely a great cause, and even more important today than possibly it's ever been in the past. So it's a good organization to bring attention to, Avram.
Cool.
Obviously, for those who have not been following along on my antics for the last 10 days, I've been working with a different nonprofit, FCDI, putting together the Roboticon online event, which works basically out of an underserved part of the Tampa area, over by the University of South Florida, and we've been doing a robotics education program. It's been a tremendous amount of fun. We've had hearing similar to this organization, hearing how some of these teams have been spending their downtime creating opportunities for additional learning for other students. There was one team that helped a foster house build a STEM program out of the foster house, which I thought was super cool. So those stories have been so much fun to listen to and get involved in this past 10 days now. So yeah, it's been nonprofit time for us. And if you want to follow along on that, roboticon.net, we've got, I cannot believe I'm going to say this, a whole another week. We had a presentation this week about robotics and space exploration, which was really cool. This coming week, we've got all kinds of other presentations too. So definitely check that out. With that, I say let's get down to some news. This week's Nifty Gifties on F5 Live is proudly powered by the Microsoft Store. Whether you're looking for a new laptop, a tablet, an Xbox, the new Xbox Series S and X are available, games, or a whole lot more, you can get them at the Microsoft Store. And remember that current students, parents, faculty, and active military can save up to 10% on almost everything, and you can find out about all of that by going to f5live.tv/Microsoft. Kind of ties in with your topic there, Avram. So we have talked a lot about how Intel has created a situation for themselves where everybody seems to be coming for them. And this week we saw another major contender finally actually throw their hat into that ring. And that, of course, is Apple. Their fourth era of Macs was officially showed off. Yeah, that's going to happen again at some point tonight, I promise. Has officially been shown off. The original era ran on the Motorola 68000 series processors. The second era on the PowerPC processors, which were built by Motorola and IBM. The third, obviously, the ones that are out in the wild right now are Intel. And the fourth will come care of Apple's own silicon and the processor, the M1, which is the big brother to the A14, which is currently powering the iPhones and iPads that are in the wild. They obviously are going to be different, right, than an Intel chip. They are like most mobile devices, ARM powered. They have an 8-core system processor, but not really, because it's actually 2 4-core processors, one for high intensity processes and one for low intensity processes, which allows for significantly greater battery life and things like that if it can throw things to that lower powered processor. It has an actual 8-core GPU, and it has dedicated processing space for AI, which obviously the Intel chips don't have. So, I mean, it's definitely a big move. Apple switching from, the known to the unknown in their own hardware in the Macs, but I think it was kind of inevitable. Don't you think, Avram?
Yes. So I was just looking at some of the benchmarks that have leaked out, and the claim is that the M1 is faster than, for those who know graphics cards, on graphics an NVIDIA GTX 1050. Now that is the low end NVIDIA card from not the current generation, but the the bottom of the line prior generation, and supposedly in some benchmarks it's coming close to AMD's RX 580, which was middle of the line a couple of generations ago. Now, for integrated graphics, as you said, 8 GPU cores, that's pretty decent. And we will have to see whether their architecture, which is very common in ARM chips, in ARM-based chips. I mean, for folks who aren't familiar with what ARM is, so every chip, pretty much every processor that is not from Intel or AMD, including Apple's chips, including NVIDIA's, including ones using a lot of servers, are all based on what's called ARM architecture. But even though the different chip vendors make it, the intellectual property, the original instruction set, intellectual property, that stuff comes from a company called ARM, which was just acquired by NVIDIA. So, or I guess they're in the process of acquiring, because I don't think it's past regulation yet, right?
Right.
So in your phone, it's an ARM processor. In your set-top box, it's an ARM processor. If your car has an infotainment system, it's an ARM processor. Some of the servers that you're hitting on the internet are using Intel or AMD x86 style processors, but a lot of them are now using ARM processors. So,
or the sister RISC.
Right.
Some servers are running the sister architecture RISC.
True. Some servers are using RISC. But really, I don't think any end devices use RISC at this point. So anyway, if you may not know it, but you probably already have. If you're not familiar, you probably already have an ARM processor or 5 in your house.
It would be scary to count just how many I have in the studio.
Right. I mean, try to count. If you have a dozen Raspberry Pis like I do, each one of those is an ARM processor. So there's another bunch. If I try to think about it, there's probably at least 20 ARM processors in my house. So, bottom line, I mean, they're not reinventing the wheel, but obviously each manufacturer that makes ARM processors adds their own special sauce to it. That's why you can say that, compare a Qualcomm processor to a processor from Rockchip, to a processor from Marvell, to a processor from Apple, right? But a lot of them have what you described, which I believe, unless this is the copyrighted name, is always called Big Little architecture, where you've got like the a bunch of big cores that are your fastest cores, and then you have a bunch of slower moving, lower clock speed cores that you would give to other tasks.
Right.
And you might be surprised to think that like video streaming might actually be one of the low speed tasks, because it actually doesn't require as much as, say, like crunching, a photo in Photoshop or something. So, so far, it seems like these M1 processors could be pretty decent, but but they have also been a little bit overhyped, in the sense that Apple said 98% their new M1 powered laptops are better than 98% of PC laptops,
which is, of course, nonsense. Because I think you and I could sit here right now and name more than 2% of the market in computers that there's no way they're going to beat, and the fact that they refuse to even say what benchmarks they've used. Normally, lawyers are like, you have to publish every piece of information so we can't get sued for false advertising. There is nothing in their claim. I've scoured the website.
So you could, yes. And there's a really wonderful article that every now and again, as a journalist, I see an article where I have like, I wish I'd written that. by one of my idols in this industry, Gordon Ung of PC World, where he takes apart the 98% claim and how bad it is. This does not mean that the M1 chips are not good.
Right.
They probably are pretty good if you are using software that's optimized for them. But they claim that they're better than 98% of PC laptops. You know what? I can make those numbers work if you want, because the way that you could do 98% of what? 98% of all computers that people currently own and use? Well, most people, the average, last I checked, the average laptop selling price was like $450 or $500, and the cheapest MacBook is $1,000. So if you're talking about if by volume, first of all, I don't know if it's faster than 98% of PCs that are currently being sold, even by volume. But if we want to go and say that there's people on the internet who are running Windows Me or something
yeah,
now.
When we were looking at those stats a couple weeks ago.
Yes, exactly. So sure, there's somebody out there there are people out there with 15-year-old laptops,
sure,
and there are people out there with brand new $100, $200 Windows laptops that they've bought that are using a Celeron. So if there's like, I don't know, 10 million of that's probably low. If there's like a billion of those laptops, then maybe 98% of them are slower than a brand new MacBook. But if you want to compare to the vast marketplace of PCs that people can buy, particularly ones that are in the same price range as an Apple product, then I don't think that's going to be the case.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got $1,000, $1,200 now. You can get yourself, depending on what model you can get yourself a pretty nice Core i7 powered laptop
for sure.
And that's where the comparison should be. But at the same time, in a way, it's apples and oranges, because either you really like Apple's.
I see what you did.
Yes, I wasn't even trying there. Either you like Apple's OS or you don't. I mean, you can run. You can't. Oh, so you can't run. I don't even think you can run Windows on these.
They have not said. They have dodged the question real hard, which suggests to me they're trying to make it work in time for launch, but probably are not going to.
I can't see the thing that they would have to do there is, it's not impossible, because for folks not familiar with this, there are Windows on ARM laptops. There are a few laptops that use ARM chips, which means that while some drivers or things would have to be adjusted, it probably could be not that hard to make it work. But Microsoft is very Microsoft doesn't make it easy for people to just get Windows on ARM, although there is a way of sort of downloading it to try on a Raspberry Pi where it works really poorly, but you can achieve it. So it's not like regular Windows where you can just go and buy a license or download it from their site easily. So I don't know if Microsoft really wants people to be installing Windows on ARM on their own.
No.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what does and does not work. Apple has been very tight-lipped on a number of things. Parallels has been one of them. Another has been gaming. It sounds like the majority of Mac games are going to be blocked on the new hardware, simply because they will not function. Because games tend to live at a significantly lower level than like a regular application. They access the hardware more directly, and so that's not a huge surprise. So we'll see. I definitely, like usual, I recommend that you avoid the first generation something like that, because there's going to be stuff to work out, just like the consoles, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The first batch, the initial couple of months are always rough with something that new and different from the current paradigm. So, interestingly, Apple is not the only one who has announced putting their own silicon into effect. Amazon has also announced that they have a new application-specific integrated circuit specifically for AI work, which will allow Amazon to lose a little bit of reliance on NVIDIA for their AI work, particularly for Alexa. They are hoping with this new server farm design that they will have a 30% cost reduction and a 25% performance increase, simply running the exact same tasks through their own targeted hardware instead of a more universal hardware like a GPU from NVIDIA. So that's an interesting move. It's not surprising. We've seen a lot of the big server farm companies get into processor design. Google's got its own processing system now. Amazon does. Microsoft has been toying with it as well. So not a surprise, but it is a good idea. I think it's not great for NVIDIA, but I don't have stock in the company, so.
Yeah, but NVIDIA wins coming and going, right?
No, that's
because
it's possible for sure.
It's an ARM chip. If it's an ARM chip and NVIDIA is acquiring ARM, they can't. This is, I guess, why it's so great for NVIDIA to acquire ARM, right? Because now they get a piece. They get a piece of the action, no matter who makes the chip.
Mm-hmm.
Now, because ARM licenses the core technology, and then all these companies build upon it. So yeah, I would guess that their margin is probably better on chips that are NVIDIA branded, but they're not getting completely cut out of the action.
Yeah, I didn't see if I think it's pronounced inferentia, but I can't be sure on that. I believe I did not see any reference to ARM. I read the whole thing through, and I don't remember ARM being referenced. It might be. I don't know if Neuron Core is an AI specific processor infrastructure, but it talks about that a number of times. So it might be ARM, it might be something else. Couldn't begin to tell you. But yeah, there's definitely a possibility NVIDIA is still in the mix somewhere down the line. But it's definitely been a big week.
It's not for certain. It could be Risk V.
Yeah, that's true. Which is the kind of sister, but not under the ARM umbrella. So, I'm impressed because Alexa's already quick, and so the fact that the company's working on trying to make responses even quicker, I think is a great move. As the two in particular, Google and Amazon, kind of battle in that space. So it'll be interesting to see what this accomplishes with time. They're also going to allow, through the Neuron SDK, they're going to allow developers to access it. Maybe not right up front, but I think that's a great idea too. We'll keep people updated on what happens here, and yeah, we'll let you know. This week's Piltch Point with Avram Piltch is proudly powered by PureVPN. The best way to protect your privacy online is with PureVPN. You can hide your online activities, say goodbye to regional restrictions, and improve your streaming quality. Plus, it's available for almost all your devices. You can get a special price and a 31-day money-back guarantee by going to piltchpoint.live/PureVPN. So, processors have not been the only hardware talked about this week, including from Apple, right?
Yes. So after Apple made the M1 announcement this week, we started to get a lot of interest in our article about USB 4 because Apple's M1 based laptops and their Mac Mini that they announced all are going to have USB 4. They're not the first, actually, because the Intel Tiger Lake powered laptops, otherwise known as 11th gen core laptops, that started coming out about a month ago, also have USB 4, and they have Thunderbolt 4. But let's break it down for a second, because a lot of people are rightfully confused about what USB 4 is and what you can do with it, and how it relates to Thunderbolt 4 and Thunderbolt 3. So take a step back with me a couple of years. Thunderbolt 3 has been out for a couple of years now. My ThinkPad that I got 2 years ago has it, and it's been around for a couple of years more than that. Thunderbolt 3 allows you to transfer data at up to 40 gigabits per second, which is 8 times faster than most USB ports. Most of the USB 3 ports that people have, the little blue ports, can go at up to 5 gigabit per second. There are 10 gigabit ports, and there are Type-C 20 gigabit ports that are quite rare, but most of the time it's 5. So what do you do with a Thunderbolt? Well, for one, you could have a docking station like this pluggable docking station that I just tested and just came out this week. This pluggable here is now out for $300, and it allows you to output to dual monitors, and it actually gives you a choice of like HDMI or DisplayPort. So you can have like either you have 2 monitors, and each one is, you get your choice.
Nice.
And it has like 7 USB ports, 5 on the back. These are all 5 gigabit ports, but then these 2 on the front are 10 gigabit USB ports, and this outputs 100 watts. Well, actually, technically 96 watts of power for charging your up to a MacBook Pro. So this is I'm throwing this in as another little thing that I tested this week. This is the pluggable TBT3 UDZ. Say that 5 times fast. Dock. Now, this is one of many Thunderbolt docks, and what's great about Thunderbolt is it has the bandwidth that you can output, 40 gigabits, so you can do direct from your graphics card, really fast video, not like a lot of USB docks that use display link technology, which works on any USB, but then uses some of your CPU's bandwidth to manage the video and compress the signal. So Thunderbolt 3 has been great not only for docks, but for eGPUs, which are external graphics cards, where you can literally get a box which holds an NVIDIA or AMD graphics card connected up to the Thunderbolt port on your laptop, which otherwise maybe has integrated graphics, and now you can play games. And that's possible because of the bandwidth of Thunderbolt. Also, you can get really, really, really blazing fast external SSDs. So those are the things that you can do with Thunderbolt 3. Now, the issue with Thunderbolt was always, in order to have a Thunderbolt port, you have to get it certified by Intel, and that costs money, and I think there's some licensing involved. And so you never ever see an AMD system with Thunderbolt, because AMD Intel, and you never saw a non-Intel system with Thunderbolt, and even among those that were Intel, it wasn't standard. Now USB USB 4 comes out, and USB 4 includes in its spec compatibility with Thunderbolt 3. It's not required in the spec, but most laptops that have USB 4 will also support Thunderbolt 3 devices. Phones will also have USB 4, so phones may not support Thunderbolt because you don't really need to put a dock like this or an eGPU with your phone. You don't need to work those together. USB 4 gives you 20 or 40 gigabit per second speeds, and it gives you the ability to do something called port tunneling, protocol tunneling, which allows the USB connection to share bandwidth between different types of data. So right now, USB has had something for a while called USB alternate mode, which means that a lot of laptops and have send video over a USB-C connection, and they can send the videos usually just using the DisplayPort protocol, which sometimes it's HDMI, but it's usually DisplayPort protocol. But when they do that, nobody's really managing the connection to say, okay, DisplayPort is only using 10 of our 40 gigabits per second. Let's give the other 30 to this external SSD that's trying to copy a file. With protocol tunneling, the USB 4 can smartly manage that, so that if you are sending a bunch of data from your webcam and you have an external backup drive, maybe your backup drive is even a PCIe backup drive, and you've got an eGPU and you're sending data, it is able to parse that up and play traffic cop with the bandwidth to make sure that each device is getting as much bandwidth as possible, as opposed to just giving all of the lanes, all of the data lanes to maybe a device that doesn't need all of them at once. Another thing USB 4 gives you is USB 4 also works with alternate mode, and it will allow DisplayPort 2 standard over alternate mode. What does that mean to you? It means it can support an 8K 60 hertz monitor. And in order to do that, it actually needs more bandwidth than USB 4 can actually do. USB 4 does 40 gigabits per second, but that's bidirectional. 40 gigabits going up and 40 gigabits coming down. If you use DisplayPort 2, it will actually send all 8 lanes of data to the monitor, and therefore use up to 80 gigabits. But however you look at it, USB 4 is a good thing and has a lot of potential. So where are we with it? Well, right now, Apple's M1 based laptops and desktop that were just announced support Thunderbolt. They're not using Intel CPUs, as we have just discussed, but they are using Thunderbolt. The new Intel powered laptops from Dell, Lenovo, HP, all of those companies, those are going to also have USB 4. Now, there's a little bit of confusion because some of those that have USB 4, it says that they also have Thunderbolt 4. Apple actually advertises that they have Thunderbolt 3 and USB 4, but they don't say Thunderbolt 4. Well, what's Thunderbolt 4 in comparison to Thunderbolt 3? Nothing. It's actually nothing. Thunderbolt 4 is a certification program from Intel that certifies that a computer can use all the features of USB 4, including Thunderbolt 3 compatibility. So if your computer supports USB 4 and the Thunderbolt 3 compatibility has been enabled, and it has 40 gigabits instead of 20 gigabits. Because as I said, it could be just a 20 gigabit connection. If it has all that stuff, it is Thunderbolt 4 compatible. It's just that the company is probably not paying Intel the money to put that logo on their box, basically. So no one should worry about not getting or getting Thunderbolt 4. What you really want to know is my new computer going to have USB 4? And if possible, is my new computer going to be Thunderbolt 3, have the version of USB 4 that's Thunderbolt 3 compatible? Obviously, if they say that it's Thunderbolt 3, then you know you're compatible. But one thing that's a little bit interesting is there's compatible and then there's compatible. Apple also announced this week that its new M1 computers will not work with Thunderbolt 3 eGPUs, even though they're advertising the laptops as Thunderbolt 3 compatible and as having USB 4. They will apparently not work with eGPUs. Now, when you think about it, the eGPUs and docks like this are pretty much the main reasons why you want Thunderbolt in the first place. I mean, you also might want, if you want just to buy a really expensive, ridiculously fast external backup drive. That's the other common use case.
TV production and stuff like that.
Yeah. So for that you would get, but I mean, it is real, like one of the things that people would really want Thunderbolt or USB 4 for is an eGPU. And Apple used to tout, I think with their Intel chips, that they actually didn't they have an official eGPU they were recommending to people on apple.com?
Yep. And they made a big deal when they launched it.
Yeah. So I don't know if they plan to change that, but Apple kind of quietly, it wasn't in the official announcement, but they told, I'm trying to think which outlet it was. We have it covered on tomshardware.com. That they've said that eGPUs will not work with these new laptops. So that's kind of a bummer, and points to the fact that especially when it comes to something like eGPUs, just because something says it's Thunderbolt 3 doesn't mean it's necessarily compatible. Certainly, if you're out there looking for an eGPU, there's some really great sites out there that do compatibility testing, because even with laptops that are Intel powered that are Thunderbolt 3, there have been compatibility issues with eGPUs. So, but overall, USB 4 is promising. Now, there's really no peripherals out yet that are labeled as USB 4. The closest that we have is that there is a dock from OWC that is labeled as Thunderbolt 4, but which I guess means, by extension, it's USB 4. All that would really mean is that it's capable through the dock of doing 40 gigabit per second transfers, hopefully. So, that is the one peripheral out there. But so far, we haven't seen anything that was marketed as a USB 4 peripheral. On the other hand, though, if you bought a Thunderbolt 3 hard drive, a Thunderbolt 3 external SSD hard drive wouldn't come close to the 40 gigabit per second. It will work in a USB 4 port on these MacBooks. So, you will get that 40 gigabit per second of bandwidth, even though those SSDs are not, have not been labeled as USB 4 devices. So, we've got a really big FAQ on USB 4 on tomshardware.com. And, if you're interested in learning about this new connection standard, which will, slowly but surely become standard on laptops, I encourage you to check it out.
It's definitely a lot of information, and a lot of like weird branding from Intel on Thunderbolt 4, for example, not exactly meaning anything. It's
right. Yeah.
It's Very
it's a
weird.
branding program. It's a branding program, and I don't know if Intel really wants you to know that, right? Really wants people to shout about that.
Well, the cat's
But
out of
it
the
is
bag now,
not.
buddy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, it's no see. I mean,
I
this
know.
is. I mean, they may at some point. They've been very close to the vest about this. So at some point, who knows? Maybe Intel will roll out and say, "Oh, look, there's some other Thunderbolt 4 standard that's faster." But um, what it is really just a certification, and therefore n- not not really meaningful. I mean, I guess the good news is if you see something as labeled as Thunderbolt 4, you can pretty well assume that it's if it's Thunderbolt 4, then it's going to support all the features of USB 4, which means 40 gigabit transfers, not 20,
True.
and backward compatibility with Thunderbolt 3, which is um, not required of something to say that it's USB 4. So, you know, there is a lot of jargon surrounding this. I certainly don't think people should run out and buy a new laptop just so that they can get one that has USB 4. I mean, the big change in USB that was a really big deal is getting power over USB,
Hmm.
and that happened a few years ago. Uh, and Frankly, every time I talk to the people from the USB forum, as I did USB implementer forum, as I did on Friday, I always ask them, when are we going above 100 watts? So far, no answer about that. Because USB 4 still supports USB power delivery, which is the power standard. But as with anything else, the amount of power delivery varies
Hmm.
and can be up to 96 or 100 watts, but no higher than that. So for any laptop that has integrated graphics, that's usually fine. But then when you get to a system that has discrete graphics, like a gaming laptop of any kind, you still have to use a proprietary connector to get that higher wattage. So
It's always interesting, Avram, to see how incredibly similar yet different we are, because I ask the exact same question of the Wireless Power Consortium. Uh, when are we going to get more than uh, whenever I talk to them, as opposed to you talking to the USB implementation forum and asking the same question? Because
I mean, I personally haven't
I
talked to the
want my
Wireless Power
wa-
Consortium in a while.
I want my wireless kitchen. I want the key standard to be out in the wild now that it has a name. That's that's my big thing in power
Yeah,
right now.
I mean, that is something that I'm really missing. I will say real quick, kind of inside baseball. One thing I'm really going to miss by not being at CES this year is that's a topic that I end up covering a lot at CES and then almost not at all the rest of the year.
Hmm.
Somehow, every CES show for the last like three CESs, I've ended up with appointments with like three or four different wireless power vendors who want to talk about how they're just this close to being able to charge your phone over the air, right? And by wireless power, I mean really wireless
Uh
power,
huh.
not putting your phone down on a Qi charger so that so that you don't have to plug in a cable, but you still have to leave it here. But like wireless over the air charging, um,
Nikola Tesla
there's
charging.
still. Yes, exactly. I mean, they've shown me things. It can work, and I think this year we saw one of the first commercial devices to do it. I'm trying to remember the name, but there was actually a Nintendo Switch controller charger
Hmm.
that uses the technology. But I think your controller still has to be in the dock to do it or something. It's not. It's still not exactly what we would want.
Right. Well, that's obviously that was a weird side tangent for us, but it's it's a passion of mine, especially the key standard. I cannot wait to be able to put a blender down anywhere on a counter and have it work. Anyway, I'm I I'm always intrigued by the inner workings of things like the USB standard and the Thunderbolt standard and all the weirdness that goes into it. And I am personally not ever able to keep up on all the details, so I always appreciate when you do it for me, Avram.
Yeah, we're trying to bring some clarity to something that is a little bit confusing. I should say real quick that the USB IF also doesn't like people to be confused, and they like they are among the biggest, most annoyed by companies using all these numbers like USB 3.1 and 3.2, and what they actually are going to put as their like packaging logos, the certificate when you get certified for USB 4, not actually going to say USB 4. The logos that they use will say USB 20 gigabit and USB 40 gigabit to just literally tell you that's the speed, and we're not going to worry you with the version number. But to keep it real, I mean, people are going to companies don't a lot of companies don't use these logos, and where most of us get our information about what USB the computer has is not from a logo on the package, but from the spec sheet that's on the product page, or the retailer's product page or the company's product page, and that will probably continue to say USB 4 and USB 3 and USB 3.2 and all that.
Yeah, we're never gonna get away from that, but thankfully it's better than Wi-Fi A, Q, C, and whatever stupid things they used to do. So, at least there we're just calling it Wi-Fi 6 now. So, anyway, thank you, Avram, for having this FAQ and giving us a better idea of what it is that we're looking at for stuff coming out. You said that obviously the FAQ is on the website.
Yes, and as we speak on our homepage, because we've been getting a lot of traffic for it, because people have shown renewed interest, and that's when we've actually made major updates to it on Friday, because I got a chance to talk to USBIF and make sure we had all the latest information.
Gotcha. Well, I'm glad. Thank you for all of that, and for getting the updated information. And as always, I look forward to what we talk about next. This week's Extra Life on F5 Live is proudly powered by Razer. Get all the accessories you need to up your game on your PC, console, or mobile device from Razer. Whether you're looking for a gaming mouse and keyboard, like we use here in the studio, a webcam and or a light to make your Twitch stream better, or an entire gaming setup like the Razer Blade 15, you can find it all by going to f5live.tv/Razer. Obviously, we know that the new consoles are out, and the two companies we have talked have taken very different strategies this time around. PlayStation has kind of continued a business as usual type strategy, whereas Microsoft isn't nearly as concerned about the actual console sales as they are about the things that go around it, although the console launch has been good for them. In fact, the Xbox Series X and S has been the largest Xbox launch in history. It was previously held by the Xbox One, of course. They sold just about 1 million consoles in the first 24 hours. This time they have sold, I believe, more than double that in the first 24 hours. Yes, in fact, that's it. They've more than doubled that in the first 24 hours with the new consoles, but that's not the thing they're most excited about, because that's not the part of the business that's really driving them. And what is of course, is Game Pass. And the statistic that they're really excited about is that 70% of console owners of the Series X and the Series S are Game Pass subscribers. 70% of those consoles are attached to a Game Pass subscription. Now, there's a number of reasons for that. Of course, the first and probably most logical is the $1 first month that comes with both Game Pass and Xbox Live. So you get your new console, you get your online gaming, and you get a whole collection of games for the first month for $1. Hard to pass up a deal like that unless you've already taken them up on that deal, and that might be where the 30% is. There's also the idea that there's so many games available for you at launch that you don't have to either repurchase or purchase at all. So you can really test out a wide variety of titles on your new console. And then the third part is the addition of EA Play. So all of those EA games coming to Game Pass subscribers. And the last is the Xbox All Access program, which allows you to essentially lease an Xbox and get Game Pass as all part of it. And in the end, it comes out actually about the same price as purchasing and both the console and the service. So I guess I'm not surprised that 70% of the new series owners are Game Pass subscribers, but it's still a big percentage, Avram.
Well, look at it this way. What console makers really want and what they get more so than gaming PC vendors is recurring revenue by locking you in a way, right? So I was just looking at this. I don't think anyone has come up with a definitive amount, but last year, which is a year ago, so who knows how prices have changed, an expert estimated the BOM cost, the bill of materials cost for an Xbox Series X as $500. So it costs $500. Therefore, their margin is zero. They make nothing on it.
Yeah.
But to say that they make nothing on it would be quite short-sighted because it's all about recurring revenue and getting people into the ecosystem where obviously they make money on Game Pass, which is the kind of stuff that companies love, recurring revenue.
Consistent and recurring revenue.
It's consistent every month you're in it. And then, of course, I don't know what the situation is, but I'm sure that Microsoft gets some kind of cut of every game, even if it's not from a studio they own.
Licensing fees for the console, yeah.
So, and then of course they get to sell you,
and of course
peripherals like controllers.
True, and of course both the games and the accessories are peak and valley type sales. They're not like Game Pass or All Access, which are predictable recurring revenue as opposed to peak and valley revenue.
Yep. So, yeah, I think so. Obviously, that's what console makers are all about, right? Don't get me wrong. PC vendors would love that. They love that too. They would love that too. But I think
Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah, that's what Microsoft wants. But
yeah.
The companies that if you want to know why consoles cost so much less than gaming PCs, while sometimes, especially in the case of the new Xbox Series X, offering you performance that is you could not get that level of performance from a $500 gaming PC.
No.
You couldn't. I mean, I don't know how high you would have to go exactly to get what we would consider comparable performance, but it's probably at least $1,500 to build a desktop that would be offer equivalent performance. So, obviously there are a lot of reasons people love to use love gaming PCs. It's not just for gaming, and there's a lot you can do with it. But the reason why consoles have always been significantly cheaper than PCs is because, the companies that make them are sure to get a cut. Sure to get a cut of everything that you buy for it.
Right. And
then they have a great shot at you for all this consistent revenue versus, you buy an Alienware laptop. Alienware probably isn't going to get more money from you until you buy a new laptop.
Right.
I mean, they might have, some companies certainly try to upsell you things, but nobody's really doing it that successfully.
Yeah, so they have to get their money up front, whereas Microsoft and Sony, I mean, the PlayStation 4 was a great example of this. The PlayStation 4 sold for $47 less than cost. So, I mean, that was a very memorable statistic, is that Sony was literally selling it at a loss in the first, I think it was 9 months before the costs broke even. So they were selling it at a loss because they knew they had licensing on games, they had peripherals, they had PlayStation Plus, they had all these other things that would come in, but they have continued that model, whereas Microsoft has found this very unique Game Pass thing that obviously is hitting a thing for Xbox users. Otherwise, we wouldn't see a 70% attach on those sales. So, they've obviously found something that the gamers, at least in the Xbox ecosystem, have been looking for in the Game Pass subscription. So, good on them, considering the Xbox One almost didn't happen between the E3 presentation and Thanksgiving of that year. So much turmoil happened within the company. They almost just flipped the table and walked away on it. So, to have gone from a point where he wasn't CEO then, but he is today, Satya Nadella was petitioning Steve Ballmer to sell the Xbox division and get Microsoft out of the business because the Xbox One was being received so poorly, to it having its best sales ever and generating great revenue on Game Pass. And Satya Nadella today is so proud of what's happening there that he continues to call it out specifically on quarterly earnings calls, because the Xbox division is doing so well for the company. So, it's a huge change of position for, in this case, just one guy within the company. But in fairness, he was also the one who petitioned to get rid of a lot of divisions. Some of them happened and some of them didn't. But, Xbox was in a rough place after that E3 presentation. The head of the division left, and it was just turmoil. So to see that the company has found a way to revitalize it and be proud of it again is good to see, and that gamers are connecting with it in a way that Steve Ballmer's attempt at attracting the Xbox brand did not work. Xbox Music. This week's news from the tubes and F5 Live is proudly powered by RiffTrax. Make fun of movies, we'll let these guys do it for you. Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, the former stars of Mystery Science Theater 3000, are back and doing what they do best, creating commentaries for Hollywood blockbusters and B-movie oddities. It's like watching a movie with your funniest friends. To find out all of the full-length features, the short films, the live events, and TV episodes that are available, you can go to f5live.tv/rifftrax with an X. Oh, data caps. We talked about them last, probably at the beginning of the lockdowns, when we talked about how a lot of the ISPs were suspending them. They're back in most of the markets. Some have continued those suspensions while others have not, but what we have learned is that the world has changed. I think we all know that in general, but the way we use the internet has definitely changed just in the last 12 months. When data caps were first introduced, they were pitched as a way of dealing with the very small percentage of people at the very top of the internet usage, who they called the power users. Well, power users are no longer a very small percentage at the top. In fact, in November of 2019, power users, which use more than 1 gig of bandwidth per month, accounted for 4.2% of all users. In 2020, that number is 8.8%. So we are closing in on 10% of all US internet users are above the standard data cap number. So if your ISP has data caps, this is officially a problem for you if you're in that almost 10% of internet users. That's a lot of people. And it has grown so much that there is now a super power user category, which is more than 2 terabytes of bandwidth per month. And it has gone from just about 1/3% last year to almost 1% of all users this year. Clearly, we know where a lot of this usage is coming from. Did I say gig or terabyte?
Terabyte.
Okay, good. I wanted to make sure I was saying that because I suddenly panicked because a gigabyte you could do with your eyes closed. 1 terabyte is equivalent to about 400 hours of HD video. And obviously, lots of conditions in there, but let's go with that easy math. 400 hours of HD video. For me, 400 hours of HD video, if I was just watching HD video, let's take all of this stuff out of the equation. 400 hours is difficult to accomplish because that's over 13 hours a day in a 30-day month. I'm probably not going to accomplish that, although sometimes I get close. But let's say now we've got a family of 4 spending a lot of time at home, and you've got Netflix and Hulu and Prime Video, Disney Plus, CBS All Access, and everybody's at home all the time. Well, now we're down to about 3 hours per person per day, which is definitely attainable. And that's without things like your daily Microsoft Teams call at work, or your Skype call, or your Slack, or whatever you're using, which on Teams, for example, you could have a window of 49 individual videos. Now, they're not HD, but 49 very low quality videos certainly adds up to the amount of data of an HD stream.
Think about, I mean, I wonder about that, because isn't that is it really different in terms of bandwidth to have a window that has a whole bunch of little streams, or one that has one big full HD stream?
It's probably more. It's probably more to have 49 small ones, because you've got all the IP protocol overhead of making sure that packets aren't lost.
I assume that you're not getting are you getting them all like that, or are they just going? I assume they're going to the server and then to you as one stream.
Maybe it would all depend on your
I mean,
on what system you're using. I bet some get
yeah.
centralized to a single thing, and then some might come to you individually. There's peer to peer
Eh,
video group video stuff, so that would be individual streams for sure.
Well, it's anyway. It's very easy to see how someone could use that up because I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
just imagine you have a couple of kids in school. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what? Let's just be clear here. Here's what school is for my son right now. It's video conferencing.
Mm-hmm.
It's video conferencing for 8 hours a day. So pretty much, right?
Yep.
Except for lunch. So yeah, that's
So
that's all bandwidth.
that's 8 of your 13. If you're talking 400 hours of HD video streaming a month, there's 8 of your 13, and that doesn't include you working. You know.
Yes, that doesn't include me working or any of us watching TV. Also, presumably that doesn't include cloud backup,
Mm-hmm.
right? I mean, what if you're backing up stuff? That doesn't include
Connected cameras.
you know, connected cameras. Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, what if you have some nanny cams in your house, or security cameras, ring doorbell, whatever? So like, yeah, it adds up and adds up, and like you need unlimited internet. So I'm looking at a chart here, and it's a little unclear to me exactly what all the plans are. You know, it says here that AT&T it charges after a terabyte. It says internet data cap 1024 gigabyte to unlimited. Does that mean that you can get an unlimited plan, or most of AT&T's plans have a data cap? You can get unlimited data through the Internet 1000 package, a TV and Internet bundle, or the $30 per month unlimited usage add-on. Well, I would definitely pay the $30 per month, because for the overage fees, like the overage fees are really punitive, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the overage charge is $10 for 50 gigabytes, right? So that's a lot, right? Because you could, eat through that, and presumably you probably won't know it till it happened, right?
Right.
So now, did some of these companies, when we first went into lockdown in March, say something like they were waiving their data caps
Yeah.
because they know
A lot.
kids were having to do school from home?
Almost everybody suspended them in the beginning. Some of the suspensions have maintained. Others have ended.
Right. So, also, I mean, also interesting this week, we could have had a whole segment on this, but, there's a lot of predictions that work from home is going to, I mean, already a lot of people work from home. So
I have been for years.
let's be real about that. But now there's a lot of predictions that a lot of the folks who started to work from home when the pandemic lockdown started are never coming back, right? Never coming back into an office.
Microsoft's made it an
I mean,
option.
there's a there's a decent chance. I mean, my company, they closed our New York office. They're supposed to at some point next year look for a new one when things, I guess, improve in the and improve with COVID. But I can foresee a lot of people.
They closed it.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's closed. I mean, we're never going back to that building.
wow.
We're never going back to that building again. Now, our case is a little bit different than many, because the lease was up in February,
Right.
and I think the company always wanted to move us out of there. So I think they used this up. They said, like, look, we don't need to reopen the office, and we're not even going to make any pretensions about reopening the office in like the late fall, just so we can do a giant move in February when we don't even know what the environment's going to be. So,
Right.
that's very fair. But I can foresee a lot of companies saying like, hey, we're not going to spend the money on this office space.
For
So
sure.
even if people want to come back and work in the office, they may not be able to. So, in this environment where internet access is like high broadband is like really, really critical, these punitive broadband caps are really, really, really painful.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't know what can be done about it, but it's like, we were talking at the beginning of this broadcast about kids who, don't have internet at all and need it for school, the digital divide. Well, what happens when, not everybody can pay? I mean, if people are paying for their basic internet, but I mean, how much of a package are you going to need to avoid getting hit with these really scary caps? And like, imagine that you're someone who's on AT&T or something. I don't know if they still have the cap in place. I mean, the wave, the waving the cap in place, the suspension in place. But like, so you have your kids in school all day, and then at the end of the month, you look at your bill, and holy cow, you know, 50 gigabytes is what, an hour of data, 2 hours, 3 hours, I don't, like a day of streaming video. How much is 50 gigs? You said it was 13 hours a day would get you
13 hours a day
would get you
gets you
one
to,
terabyte for the month.
yeah. So 50
So
gigs
what?
is 10% of that would be 100, so 5%, so 10% of 13 is 1.3, so about 3/4 of an hour a day.
So okay, so imagine, because they don't have a cap on the overage fees, right? I presume. So imagine if you're getting this 8 hours a day. So you're going to be paying $80 a day for your kid to attend school,
Right.
for your kid to stream school.
Yeah, that's crazy.
I mean, and I mean, I guess if you got that bill once, you would call them and yell at them, and then you would ask for the extra to the higher end package
Right.
that gives you unlimited. But they would get you at least that one time,
Mm-hmm. For sure.
right? They because I'm sure that's how those fees work. Is like, oh yeah, $30 to avoid this fee, but there's probably no cap on the amount of overage fees they can charge you. So, could you end up with like $1,000 bill or something? I don't know. It's
We've seen it with
it's madness,
we've seen it with cell phones. So why not, right?
right? Yeah. Could you end up with like $1,000 bill with these internet overages? I think the worst thing though, and I just have to say this too, I don't see this talked about a lot anymore, which is good. But I remember when these data caps first came out, there were a lot of my colleagues in tech journalism who were using the terms like data hogs to describe people who were using more than the cap.
Uh-huh.
And I said at the time, this is terrible. You're selling the cap.
Mm-hmm.
You're like doing a sales pitch for these companies on why it's okay for them to have the cap when you're calling people who use the internet data hogs, because there was this conception of, oh yeah, there's someone who's running like running some kind of thing where they're sharing illegal music or something out of their house,
And
and that must be why they're over it.
that is exactly the story that the ISPs were telling. And you're right, so many of the people in our industry were buying that obviously idiotic story, when in reality I knew at the time that the ISPs were preparing for a change of usage. We knew smart homes were becoming the norm. IP cameras were going to be an everyday thing. I mean, did we predict Ring doorbells exactly? No, but IP cameras were obviously going to become more common, and connected, because we were seeing connected thermostats and light bulbs and all kinds of other stupid things, right? And
Cloud backup.
Yeah.
Cloud backup, right? I mean, there are people who, and this is not like crazy to do, there are people, gaming. Let's talk about gaming for a second. You didn't even mention gaming.
You're right, I didn't.
Right? You didn't. and I'm not, and let's not for a second, not even talk about the amount of bandwidth you're using while you're playing a game, where there's so many games like Fortnite and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, where it's all online. Have you looked at recently how much how much bandwidth you use to just install and download a single game?
Yeah, right. Because there's your 80 to 100 gig uh, for your
I
first
mean,
week.
yeah, like that's a game. An individual game could be
Mm-hmm.
100 gigabytes. The I mean, I was thinking about the caps a few weeks ago when I was doing a massive bunch of benchmarking on a desktop here, and I had to download and install 5 different games. And I mean, I think like Tomb Raider or something was like 80 or 100 gigs, and like Red Dead Redemption was like, 80 or 100 gigs. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
sitting here today, I probably passed some of these data cap,
Yeah, yeah.
um, just installing these games, right? So
And
yeah, it's
services like we just talked about with Game Pass, where you've got more than 100 games for your Xbox and then 100 games for your PC. You swap games out, uh, every couple of days maybe because they're available to you. You're gonna blow past a terabyte real quick.
Has anybody studied whether this stuff actually is a serious impediment to these companies? Because there's a lot of companies that don't do this, right?
Yep.
Unfortunately, though, as a consumer, you don't have a lot of choice because most people don't have a lot of choices in their
Yeah.
area.
Yeah, I'm fortunate with the move. Now I've got more than my fair share of choices, and none of them have data caps, which is nice. Uh, but but yeah, I mean, a lot of your big guys, AT&T, Comcast, Cox, all have data caps. Although all three of them are currently suspended. I've found a page on a broadband site that has information on who is suspended and who is not. Those three plus MediaCom and Sparklight are all suspended right now. But yeah, gaming will kill you. Security cameras will kill you. Just being a modern home will kill you, and
Yeah, I mean,
it totally
uh,
explains why we're approaching 10% of all subscriptions being over a terabyte. I get it, and almost 1% of subscribers are hitting 2 terabytes. Yeah, I get it.
yeah, I think so. I think this is going to have to change.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Like, there's going to be some kind of pressure on them to, if not unlimited, to raise it significantly, so that again, only if some percentage of people hit it. But as a user, you shouldn't have to think about it because the rest of the ecosystem is not designed for data caps. Like, Netflix is not designed to have you worrying about data
Right.
caps. Like, not like none of these other services and devices and all that. If people have to start now, I mean, our if you really think about it, our the tech economy counts on two things to be fairly cheap: internet and electricity, right?
Yep.
If either of those things become so expensive that people are starting to nickel and dime, um, oh, I don't want to buy this graphics card because it uses too much electricity, or I don't want to play this game because it uses too much electricity.
Right.
If people start actually like really worrying about their consumption of those two things, the like downstream effects on the rest of any internet business, any like hardware business, are going to be devastating. Like, people need to have cheap and freely available internet. I don't even really know. I think the thing that we don't really know is this just profit taking, or are they actually, like, how much does it really cost them to give you 2 terabytes of
Right.
data?
Right. And I don't think,
Does anybody actually know?
no, probably not even the companies.
I mean, does it cost like, is it really iterative? I mean, obviously electricity is happening. There's some electricity being used somewhere. to send data to me from the ISP, so I know it's not zero.
Right.
But like, at, at what point is it really appreciable, because they have to keep building out their network? Like, so I don't know. I mean, I get it that they probably, I could sort of agree that if someone was, say, trying to run a server farm out of their house,
On a
that
consumer data connection.
on a consumer data connection, that might not be a fair use of their, you know,
Sure.
of their $50 a month internet.
Right.
But
Absolutely.
for the rest of us, like, this is a serious problem, because you shouldn't have to think about am I going to be over my bandwidth?
Right. When you're trying to play a video game. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
There were a lot of articles that came out at the beginning of the lockdown suggesting that maybe this was the thing that was going to end data caps. So far, no. Although, the big three that do have data caps all still have them suspended months and months later. But we'll see what the end result is here in time, because it's been a very long time that these things have been suspended. Most of them have been since April. So it has come back to being the norm to not have a charge for overages. So maybe it will stay that way, but we'll.
Now would be a very bad time for them to do it.
Yeah, well,
Now would be an exceedingly bad time for them to bring it back. That would be exceedingly bad public relations.
Yeah, it would.
On their part, now that the rate of COVID cases is rising.
Comcast might manage to go from the number 3 hated company in the country to 2 or 1 if they tried to pull that right now. Which would be really impressive to manage to move their up that chain anywhere above 3. The fact that they're at 3 is impressive. But yeah, obviously only time's going to tell what happened here. But you're absolutely right. This would be the world's worst time to bring it back. If they do, it would be way into next year. But yeah, it could be that it's over. But there is a company that relies on it. The company that put out this study, by the way, OpenVault, is the company that's responsible for the technology that allows them to do data caps. So if you want to hate on somebody, that's them. This week's DRM, not included in F5 Live, is proudly powered by Amazon Prime. In addition to your free shipping, you get a whole lot more for your subscription, including free music with Amazon Prime Music and discount on an upgrade to the full Amazon Music Unlimited, free TV, movies, and documentaries with Amazon Prime Video, free games, and a free subscription with Amazon Prime Gaming, and a whole lot more. And to learn more, get your 30-day free trial, give it as a gift, and have quick links to all of these features and more. You can go to f5live.tv/prime. So speaking of Amazon, let's talk about Twitch again for a second. About a month ago, we talked about an interesting situation that Twitch had gotten itself into, in which it deleted video from a number of high-profile streamers and sent out strangely vague emails about what had happened. It had followed a tweet from the creative director of Typhoon Studios saying that Twitch streamers should be required to acquire a license in order to stream games. And while a lot of games do offer that license as part of the purchase, there was some speculation that maybe the two were tied together. But no, the smart money at the time we talked about it, the smart money was on the fact that the Twitch community has long ignored copyright law and included playing music in the background of just everyday nothings. And so RIA, the Recording Industry Association of America, has ignored Twitch for the most part, but that changed all at once. And Rhea put in a ton of DMCA takedown notices all at once, and Twitch was not prepared. They did not have a system in place to handle DMCAs because they'd been ignored. Nobody was filing them in any meaningful amount. And so all of these came in, and it seems like they panic deleted. And the word delete is important because they did not suspend the content. They did not hide the content. They deleted the content. So there was no way for the streamers to counter with either fair use claims or, whatever. I'm in a room and there's music in the background. Like I think we've probably all encountered on YouTube with CES interviews. I know I have several times where somebody puts a claim because booths over somebody's playing music. So on YouTube, you counter it. You say fair use. It's not my music. I wasn't there. And everything's fine. Not the case on Twitch. So Twitch has apologized for the very inappropriate behavior. And they claim that they're working on policies and systems to allow them to properly handle DMCAs. But what does that mean for right now? Between now and them releasing these new systems, what's going to happen? Are they going to continue to panic delete content? Are they going to manually move them to another backup server? There is no telling, because they have not been terribly open about that part. But they do promise that stuff is coming in the future. What's that timeline look like? Once again, so they're aware that they screwed up, but I don't know when a fix is coming. We saw some of this, right, in the early days of DMCA notices to YouTube and stuff, where they didn't quite know how to handle it. But at least with YouTube, like, they didn't just panic delete content. There was the ability always on YouTube to have hidden videos, so they just hid them. That's not quite how Twitch works. So this sucks.
Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting question. So what happens if you're playing a game and the music in the game is not exclusive to the game?
Yeah.
Like, what if it's, I don't know enough about this, but aren't there any games that have that use actual hit songs in
Absolutely. Them? Yeah. And that has encountered issues on YouTube gaming. And it's one of the things that YouTube has struggled with, is figuring out exactly how that fits into the DMCA. Most of the time, when a counterclaim is filed with RIA on fair use terms, the RIA agrees and the content is restored. Now, is that personal precedent, or is that legal fair use? I don't know. But so far it seems like on YouTube, counterclaims have been a success in gaming, but that may not have a legal backup. There might be a point where that changes, because fair use is a defense in court. It's not a law. So there's a lot of subjectivity to it. But yeah, on YouTube in general, when a game, like if you're streaming Rock Band, for example, you're going to get flagged, guaranteed. Or Fuser, the new rhythm game that just came out. If you're streaming that, you're going to get flagged, almost certainly. But counterclaims tend to work there. So, and that's the kind of thing that really kind of sucks here, right? Is, maybe it is a semi-invalid notice. Maybe it is somebody streaming Rock Band or something like that. And under normal circumstances, a counterclaim would be a success. Well, there's no counterclaim system. The video's been deleted. Or, God forbid, somebody files a fictitious DMCA like the Nikola Car Company did against media organizations on YouTube that showed the video of the truck not actually driving, right? We talked about that a number of weeks ago. No counterclaim there either. If it's fictitious, it's still gone. Bye-bye. So there's a lot of problems here that Twitch is going to have to figure out. And they're going to have to figure out real quick, because at this point, they're up against a timer of finishing these systems in time to save their reputation. Because at some point, you know, the big streamers are going to get annoyed and go to Facebook gaming or YouTube gaming or, you know, somewhere that has systems in place that don't constantly try to screw the streamers accidentally in this case. So the timer is running. One of the interesting things that has come out of it, I was talking about this with my brother last week during Roboticon, not on camera, is there's one streamer who, like, she was just like sitting in a chair, and this is her normal thing. Like, she's just sitting there and like interacting with people, but there's always music in the background. But since the DMCA stuff, she's not playing music in the background, so she's just sitting there. He's like, the mood is so different because it's gone from like this party atmosphere to super creepy.
Well, she needs to have like some kind of radio station of royalty-free music.
Mm-hmm. Jump on.
I've been trying to
jump on YouTube into the royalty-free music section. Just hit play. Let them go one after another.
Yeah, I mean, one can hope, of course, that those are actually that everything that is advertised as royalty-free is
right. At least in the YouTube,
people can upload stuff there that's copyrighted.
In the YouTube content library, at least you know that that's YouTube curated. Inside the creator studio, there's YouTube curated stuff that YouTube has bought the licenses for. So,
cool. Yeah, I mean, my son and I were driving each other a little. I was driving him a little bit nuts because we were working on a video game that we want to like distribute on GitHub.
Okay.
Like, a really simple little like Python game, and he wanted to have music in it, and he had like downloaded some music that was, let's say, not royalty free.
Sure.
That mimicked an old game, and I was like, no, if we want to distribute this, we have to find royalty free music, game music. And so like we went and we found some things, and I'm still thinking like, they were listed as royalty free on these various sites, but
what
who
scenarios,
knows if the person who put it there,
right? What scenarios are they royalty free under? Was it uploaded by the author or somebody else?
The things that kids have to learn today because of the internet are amazing. Like, I didn't have to learn about copyright laws when I was 8 years old. I also didn't. I mean, I
don't fully understand it today.
Right, but I didn't even know. I don't think I knew what a copyright law was when I was 8 years old. Now my son has to know what a copyright law is, and we ended up having a discussion about profit margins today. It's like asking me why something is more expensive than something else, and he's like, "Well, it costs them more." And I'm like, well, maybe they're making a bigger margin. Well, what's the margin?
Apple, for example, to bring it all the way back to the beginning of the show.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe you're Apple and everything has a really high margin.
Yeah, because nobody's buying anything else. Anyway, well, that is our show. That was a great way to tie right back to the beginning. Thank you to those of you who have joined us live. We always appreciate that. If you didn't and would like to in the future, Sunday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern, f5live.tv/join us. That's the best way to be with us. You can chat with us in the studio, give us your feedback. If you cannot join us live, that is okay. PlughItzLive.com/subscribe will show you all of our shows, including F5 Live, Piltch Point, PlughItz Live Presents, and a whole lot more. As I said at the beginning, I'll say it again now. Roboticon has content all week long, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then our closing ceremony on Saturday, where I'm hoping to have a special guest. I'm working on that right now. Fingers crossed. So you can join us for that at roboticon.net. And with that, on behalf of the staff that's not here, I'm Scott.
I'm Avram.
And we will see you back next time. Ciao.